Imagine this for a second. You are Kim Jin-ho, an absolutely undisputed mixed martial arts world champion, undefeated for over 40 years. You're so dominant, so entirely unchallenged in the ring that your only hobby is grinding through the hardest video games on Earth just to feel a tiny spark of a challenge. But, well, what happens when the universe actually listens to your complaints about being bored? A random lightning bolt shoots down from the sky, strikes your apartment, and delivers your first ever defeat. Instant death. But hey, that is literally just the beginning of the wild story we're breaking down in today's explainer.
So, our champion doesn't just die and fade away. Nope. He wakes up in a totally new, brutally unforgiving reality. He finds himself reincarnated as a 15-year-old kid named Zed Araham. And let me tell you, he doesn't wake up in some cozy, luxurious castle. Oh no, he opens his eyes on death row, specifically inside Butcher Prison, which is basically the most secure and ruthless facility in the entire empire. And to make matters worse, he's handed a massive, mind-boggling handicap right out of the gate in a world that is entirely dictated by magic.
You see, when he pulls up his new status window, it reveals a completely bizarre anomaly. His agility, strength, and perception, they are absolutely maxed out. He somehow retained all of his peak physical combat abilities and insane reflexes from his past life. But his mana? It's sitting at absolute zero. Zero. In a magical world, having no mana essentially makes you completely powerless.
And that zero? It's basically a death sentence. House Arahan is the Empire's most powerful, cutthroat lineage of mages. We're talking about a family famous for their distinct red eyes and absolutely overwhelming magical circuits. So being an Arahan with zero mana makes Zed worse than just a disappointment. He's an absolute outcast. He is despised by his own bloodline, and worst of all, he is an immediate, walking target for every single sadistic guard and inmate inside Butcher Prison.
But here's the thing, a zero mana pool definitely doesn't mean zero danger. When this massive inmate, known only as number 589, tries to corner and bully Zed in the cafeteria, blaming him for some extra hard labor, Zed realizes he doesn't actually need magic. He just shrugs off a direct full-force punch like it is a gentle breeze. Then, relying entirely on his maxed-out physical stats and 40 years of pure martial arts mastery, Zed unleashes this relentless, blinding barrage of perfectly executed strikes. He completely dismantles the giant bully without breaking a sweat.
Of course, things escalate incredibly fast after that. The cafeteria brawl triggers a massive, full-blown prison riot, which is actually orchestrated by the corrupt guards. Suddenly, dozens of inmates are rushing Zed all at once. But honestly, he is entirely in his element. He's vanishing, weaving, and countering instantly. He's dodging sword slashes, spinning midair, and casually knocking out seasoned, hardened combatants with mere kicks to the jaw. It's a complete masterclass, and he's absolutely humiliating everyone without casting a single spell. Well, all that noise finally brings out the big boss of the prison, Warden Clark. This guy is a terrifying, retired five-circuit knight who literally embodies hatred for mages. Clark stomps in and unleashes his magical aura, this crushing, invisible pressure designed to just flatten anyone in the room. But Zed, he just stands there with absolute swagger. Why? Because alongside those maxed physical stats, Zed inherited an S-ranked mental defense trait that completely nullifies magical pressure. The Warden is left standing there completely speechless, seething with frustration as his ultimate power does absolutely nothing to this smirking kid. Now Zed doesn't just survive this encounter, he completely turns the chaos to his advantage. He brilliantly demands a spot on death row just to secure a final meal of Verity beef. You see, this isn't just any steak, it's an incredibly rare, stat-boosting meat. He wolfs down the beef, clears out all his lingering physical debuffs, and then teams up with a master thief inmate named Rio. While Warden Clark is distracted by the ongoing riot, Rio actually manages to steal his keys. The two of them smash their way through the remaining guards and escape into the dead of night.
Okay, so they're free, but now they desperately need money. This takes us straight to the underground fighting arena. Zed steps into the ring, ready to earn some cash, but he immediately faces his absolute worst possible matchup. He's up against a rigged fighter named Ikos, who happens to be wearing an ogre belt. For context, this is a magical item that gives a whopping 90% reduction to all physical damage. For a fighter with zero mana who relies entirely on physical strikes, this fight should literally be impossible to win.
But we already know Zed isn't just a physical brawler, he's a tactical genius. He relentlessly targets the exact same tiny spot on that belt, landing crushing, rapid-fire horizontal kicks until the impossible actually happens. He shatters the magical item entirely, and in that moment of pure combat excitement, something fundamental clicks inside Zed's body. A massive dopamine hit surges right through him, and his system window updates. His mana finally takes up from an absolute 0 straight to a monumental 1.
And you guys, it is not just regular mana. Zed awakens Lightning Chi. This is an awe-inspiring, ultra-rare elemental magic that completely bypasses basic magical defenses. It's so legendary that not even the patriarch of the Arahan family could master it. So, when a furious Warden Clark eventually tracks them down for an ambush, Zed doesn't just fight back physically this time. He literally hovers in the air and blasts the corrupt Warden with devastating, shield-shattering lightning, finally securing their total freedom.
Right, so after absolutely wiping the floor with Clark, Zed and Rio know the Empire's going to place a massive, kingdom-wide bounty on their heads. Forced out of the Northern Territories, they begin a long, grueling trek south. Their destination? The region of Tamaya, where they aim to use a teleportation portal to escape the immediate manhunt.
Down in Tamaya, things get complicated. They run straight into the Bahal family knights, who just so happen to be the sworn mortal enemies of House Arahan. The young heir, a 17-year-old named Torres Bahal, attacks Zed on sight. But during the fight, Torres suffers a lethal magical backlash. In a crazy twist, Zed incredibly chooses to save his enemy's life. He then teams up and fights alongside these knights to hunt down demonic basilisks, utilizing his newfound lightning. By fighting with true honor, Zed manages to earn the ultimate, undeniable respect of his greatest historical rivals.
And that respect? It pays off in a huge way. Rio's little sister Lisa had been missing, having been sold to a corrupt slave market run by a ruthless thug named DeVito. Zed infiltrates the market alone, and when DeVito tries to spring a trap on him, Taurus and the Bahal Knights literally burst right through the doors. It is an incredibly satisfying revenge sequence. Together, they absolutely destroy the slaving operation, rescue Lisa, and cement a powerful, unbreakable alliance between Zed and the Bahal heir.
Then, a massive political flex happens. Zed is invited to the Baha castle as an honored guest, and he decides to visit their training grounds. Now, the Baha family is famous for their divine white horses, which uniquely choose their own masters. There's one legendary horse, Jingu, who had stubbornly rejected everyone for years, including the Baha patriarch himself. But the very second Zed arrives, Jingu runs right over and bows specifically to him. Imagine the shock, an Arahan casually claiming the Baha's greatest steed. But Zed knows this peaceful moment won't last. The Arahan patriarch has formally summoned him back home, and returning to that literal viper's nest requires serious preparation. So, Zed executes 3 strategic masterstrokes. First, he exposes a corrupt church to secure flawlessly purified holy water. Second, he tracks down Lacto, a legendary fugitive blacksmith, to forge his custom gear. And third, he partners up with Eddie, the underground alley king, to establish a vast covert intelligence network focused squarely on his own family.
And you know that pure holy water he got? Yeah, it wasn't just for show. Zed uses it to craft a highly potent, super rare elixir. When he drinks it, we hit yet another huge milestone. His mana aggressively surges, pushing past level 3 and shooting all the way up to level 5. This is a crucial, game-changing power-up that officially unlocks his full, devastating lightning potential. He is definitely no longer just a martial artist with a spark, he is a deadly, high-level elemental mage.
So, fully armed and incredibly dangerous, Zed returns to the Arahan estate to face his father, the notoriously ruthless patriarch Zenedin. This is a man who literally murdered his own siblings just to secure power. The tension in the room is insane. Zenedin knows for a fact that Zed is lying about his recent adventures, but surprisingly, he spares his life. Why? Because the patriarch wants to exploit Zed's intoxicating, unprecedented lightning magic for his own legacy. But Zed is smart. He uses this exact leverage to demand his own estate and private guards.
There's a catch, though. Zed's newly inherited estate is currently being controlled by his corrupt older brother, Tund, and a highly scheming headmaid named Grace. When Zed shows up to claim what is rightfully his, he absolutely refuses to bow or cower. Armed with the silent backing of the Bahal Knights, the Alley King's intel, and his own raw, overwhelming power, he delivers a chilling, authoritative warning right to their faces. He tells them, "If you mess with me, you lose everything." And just like that, he takes back his entire territory in a single day.
And that, my friends, leaves us with a truly fascinating final question to ponder. Zed Arahan started with absolute 0 mana on death row, right?
Now he's a level 5 lightning mage backed by the Empire's greatest blacksmith, the underground's smartest intel broker, and the sworn knights of his rival family. But as we've seen, his greatest enemies are still lurking right within his very own bloodline. So how on earth will Zed conquer the Empire that once wanted him dead? Well, you'll just have to keep following the story to find out.